What's going on, guys? This is the Red Rogue, and I hope you're all doing well today. Well, patch 9.1's latest PTR build just hit yesterday, and there's already some big stuff to talk about. One in particular is the 4 Rogue Covenant-specific Legendaries. So I've been fiddling with them to see what I think of them and to see how they perform, which is what we'll be talking about today. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now let's look at some Legendaries. This video will be segmented out so you can jump between each of the topics as you see fit, but before I get started, I have a couple quick disclaimers. These are quite literally hot and fresh out of the PTR oven, so don't be too surprised if these see any alterations in the coming weeks. I'll do my best to put up any updated information regarding these new legendary powers as it comes out. Also, for anyone who hasn't been on the PTR in this first day or so of the build, this thing DCs like 18,000 times an hour. So I did my best to get footage of each of these legendaries and as much information and testing about them as I could, but my sanity literally couldn't stand DCing every 2 minutes anymore. And also, I'm not going to call any of these things overpowered or anything like that, because a lot of folks seem to inherently want to dismiss anything that sounds like it might be too good to be true in some situations, but not in others and whatever. Yet other classes end up with legendaries that are like 12% DPS gains, and ours are only like 7 or 8% at the very most. Rogues are allowed nice things too every now and then, so let's just look through these together and you can decide what you think of them for yourself. For accessing these new legendary powers, it is currently not listed in-game exactly how you go about getting them. On the PTR, there is just a vendor who sells a book that teaches you all the powers, so that's how I've been able to test them. I'll be sure to let you all know how they're earned once that information is made available. Speaking of learning these legendary powers, I will have to lead with a bit of an unfortunate event. The Kyrian legendary Resounding Clarity doesn't seem accessible as of yet, at least for me. I've tried on multiple Kyrian copies of my rogue and could not learn this legendary power from the vendor who teaches you them on the PTR that I just mentioned, despite all the other powers being learnable and craftable and all that. This one sounds potentially interesting though, so the best I can do right now is speculate on how it works. Echoing Reprimand will now anima charge 4 combo points instead of just 1. To me, this sounds like you'll have 4 uses of the 7 combo point finisher for each time you cast Echoing Reprimand. If that's actually how it works, which I'll do my best to find out when it's actually in the game, then it sounds pretty decent, though it still requires playing around the combo point minigame of hitting exactly the right number of combo points to make use of the effect. Of course, with 4 of your 5 combo points being anima charged, the first couple would be really easy to proc. And for all 3 specs of Rogue, this could be used to fuel either single target or AoE damage depending on what you're trying to do, as you can Blade Flurry all of these 7 combo point finishers as Outlaw, or you can dump them into Crimson Tempests and Ruptures as Assassination, or you can burn through a ton of Eviscerates and Black Powders as Subtlety. This could pair really nicely with the new Mechanico's Soulbind trait, which makes it so that when you use Echoing Reprimand, you release a burst of damage, and for each enemy you hit with the burst, you reduce the cooldown of Echoing Reprimand by 3 seconds up to a total of 15 seconds of cooldown reduction. This means you could get Echoing Reprimand down to a 30-second cooldown when you activate the ability on 5 targets, and then you'll have 4 juiced up finishers to use. Possibly good synergy, but it'll be hard to say exactly how strong it'll be, especially since that cooldown reduction effect is only really meaningful in AoE situations. Up next we have Obedience, the Venthyr legendary power. This makes it so whenever you gain a stack of Flagellation, you also gain 1% versatility, and you reduce the cooldown of Flagellation by 1 second for every combo point you spend while it's active. This means on top of the 30% haste buff you could potentially get, you could also have a whopping 30% versatility as well. However, don't get too excited yet, as while that sounds really awesome, right now in the PTR it's probably really buggy, because you only keep that versatility buff during the 12-second window of Flagellation when you're gaining stacks, and as soon as the second half of Flagellation triggers, you only keep the haste. Pretty sure that's a bug, as it sounds like exactly opposite of how it would work, but this makes the already very bursty Covenant ability even more bursty. Speaking of bugs, the second half of this legendary is kinda sort of amazing right now. You're only supposed to reduce the cooldown of Flagellation while you have the buff from the way it's worded and are spending combo points. However, yeah, it just always has cooldown reduction rolling whenever I tested it, meaning you can have Flagellation down to an absurdly short cooldown. Definitely not working the way that it's intended to, but even if you only get the cooldown reduction while you're spending combo points, then you can very easily get Flagellation down to under a minute cooldown, and it's already pretty strong, so that's cool. Next, we have Toxic Onslaught, the Night Fae Covenant Legendary. The ability used from stealth that comes from the Sepsis proc will grant you an 8-second version of either Shadow Blades, Adrenaline Rush, or it will apply Vendetta to your currently active target. The buff is chosen completely at random, so you can have Shadow Blades or Vendetta proc for you as Outlaw, or Adrenaline Rush or Shadow Blades as Assassination, etc. However, the Vendetta buff seems to be broken as it disappears every time I get it to proc after like 1 second. What's worse is if you forget to use your stealth ability proc from Sepsis, then you lose the legendary effect too. Somehow they managed to make Sepsis once again the most disappointing Covenant ability. Also, if you actually have one of those buffs active, like if you have Adrenaline Rush active, and you get Adrenaline Rush to proc from the Covenant legendary, yeah, it overwrites the regular version of it and replaces it with the shorter version, so you could easily actually lose part of your cooldown because of this legendary right now. Honestly, I wish they just reused some anima power from Torghast that makes, like, Sepsis reset the cooldown of your major ability if it survives the poison or something, because even that would be a better choice than this one. I strongly hope that Blizzard will take this ability back to the drawing board and try again, as it is by far the worst of the 4 Covenant legendaries, and there is no way it would be worth using in its current state. I mean, really, 8 seconds, tied to a 1.5-minute cooldown ability. And last, but definitely not least, Deathspike, the new Necrolord legendary power. This makes Serrated Bone Spike have 2 additional charges, and you'll throw 2 extra Bone Spikes at nearby enemies whenever you chuck one out. This legendary will offer basically no advantage in a single target situation, since all it will do is just give you a couple extra charges, and it only throws extra Bone Spikes when there's additional targets nearby. I can't quite tell the exact distance, but I'd guess that it considers nearby about 5 or so yards from the original target, so they'd need to be relatively close together. However, as Bone Spike is very strong for this already, this legendary will shine in multi-target encounters and places with lots of adds to kill. So basically this would be a strictly Mythic plus AoE legendary, or possibly a Council-style boss fight legendary if they're stacked regularly and meaningful damage can be done to all of them at once. The amount of combo points this legendary can generate is pretty intense too, because within 1 Bone Spike cast, you'll be generating basically full combo points repeatedly. For some reason, as Outlaw, even though I was throwing 3 Bone Spikes at a time technically, I was still only getting the combo points like I was throwing 1, which is kinda weird since they're supposed to give 1 for every bleed that's out. For Assassination Rogues though, each of these Bone Spikes can critically hit, meaning they can each generate an extra combo point from the Seal Fate passive. It is impressively easy to generate full combo points every Bone Spike cast as Assassination, especially when running the Master Assassin talent. For Outlaw, this legendary could become a formidable Mythic Plus choice if you're prioritizing AoE or trash damage, since every single one of these Bone Spikes will deal Blade Flurry damage. You basically have to sacrifice any single target DPS gains that you would normally get from your other legendary choices, so it may not become some huge overall damage gain and probably won't see much use in raiding, but for beefing up Outlaw's cleave damage, this could become an exceptionally strong choice once we have some more data on it, which I'll hopefully be able to get once the servers stop crapping themselves and DCing me every 2 frickin' seconds. Anyways folks, I hope you enjoyed this sneak peek at the Rogue Covenant Legendaries for patch 9.1, and again I apologize that I wasn't able to test the Kyrian one, as for the life of me I tried on like 3 different versions of my Rogue and I could not get a single one of them to learn the legendary pattern from the vendor, so I'm not even sure if it's accessible in game even though it says it's there. I don't know, but as soon as I find out more information about it I'll be sure to let you all know. I am really excited to see what will happen with the Necrolord and the Venthyr ones in particular though, as I think both of those could have some potentially strong niches to fill. Anyways, if this video was useful to you then please consider leaving a like, a comment, or maybe even subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet. It's all fantastically appreciated, and I might have some other useful information either already on the channel or in my upcoming videos as I plan to do a lot more PTR stuff. And as always, I wanted to just thank and give my gratitude to all of my viewers and especially my patrons, who all help make these Shiba Shenanigans possible. Thank you all so much for watching. This is the Red Rogue, and I'll see you guys around.